I hear so many people with great ideas. 2-3 years later, they've still got these great ideas. Nothing's happened.
Because knowledge without action is just knowledge, right?
Exactly. Found myself then looking at this business as a whole. Is it going to go up or is it going to go down? Looking back at it now, I'm very glad I seen that it wasn't going up, because when I speak to people who are in that same industry, in that area, they've suffered.
There are properties out there that are priced perfectly. If you can find those properties, it's about understanding, keep the end in mind, understanding what it's worth, what can you do with that property. It's understanding that aspect and working backwards that tells you whether or not the asking price is a good price. Hello there, and welcome to the Progressive Studio. I'm Sean Fitzpatrick, the face of Progressive Property, and I am interested in hearing success stories from our community, people who interact with our community and people who can learn from our community. And I'm joined by a very special guest today. This is Damien Mulhern, and Damien seems to be absolutely smashing it in the world of property. So Damien is going to tell his story. This is one you don't want to miss. Hello, Damien.
How you doing, Sean?
Great to have you here in the studio.
Thank you.
So what I would love to hear, I would love to hear your story. I want to hear Damien before property and Damien after property and how it's changed your life. So before you found property and before you found the progressive community, tell us about what you were up to.
Yeah, so just before I found both of them and before I went into property, I had an aggregates business.
You're a businessman.
Well, I try to be, yeah. I get too excited about that. But yeah, an aggregates business, had it in the Wirral. I'm originally from Manchester, so a bit of a drive there. Had that for about 4 years.
So when you say a bit of a drive there, I mean, was it a long? I mean, tell us about that. Where did you live and where was the business?
Yeah, so I was in Stockport. The business was in the Wirral. So about an hour's drive. It wasn't too bad, but traffic can ruin you.
Yeah, traffic. I'm from Oxford, so I know all about traffic. And so the aggregates business. Now, I've never heard really of the aggregates business. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's working with mostly ground workers. So say, for example, someone goes out and puts some pipes in the ground, gas, water, electric, whatever it is. We'd allow them to tip, at a cost obviously, allow them to sit there spoiling with us, and then we'd recycle it. So we'd screen it, crush it, and we'd turn it into different types of sand, stone and soil, and try and sell it back to them on a good day. And
try and sell it back to them on a good day, so hopefully they would fix some of the potholes.
Yeah, I don't know, still plenty around,
isn't there? Yeah, and so you got into the aggregates business. How did you find that business? How did you get into that line of work?
So I spotted a niche in it. So my family are involved in groundwork. So I actually worked with them for a bit, but it's not easy working with family, Sean. You know, Irish family like yourself as well.
Yes, I'm one of 9 children.
Really?
Yes, I know what it's like trying to work with any of them.
Yeah, that's why you're over here. Get away.
Well, I don't shout too loudly about that, but yes, I am in England.
So I kind of got the idea through them. I seen, well, not through them, but from watching them, see how much they were spending, putting quarried materials back in. I wasn't like the first one to come up with recycling aggregates, but I learned about it and spotted a little niche there, so I went into that.
So you spotted a niche, you were working with the family, it didn't quite work out, but you spotted a niche and you took action.
Yeah.
To solve that problem.
Yeah. Took action and risk as well. Do you know, I wasn't guaranteed that it'll work, but I decided to take a risk, and you need to do that, don't you? You need to assess the risk, not stupid risk, but go over it, do as much as you can due diligence-wise, and then just take that risk. And action as well, Sean. I hear so many people with great ideas. 2-3 years later, they've still got these great ideas. Nothing's happened.
Nothing's happening.
Gotta be action.
Because knowledge without action is just knowledge, right?
Exactly.
Nothing happens. Yeah. And I'm a great believer that if you do have an idea, if you don't implement that idea, the idea doesn't actually exist. It doesn't exist in reality for anybody. And just taking that action and going for it, as you say, assess the risk. So build the parachute while you're in the plane type thing, you know, understand that there is a risk, but then just go for it.
Yeah, exactly.
And see where it leads. And where did it lead?
So that business ran well. It ran well for like 4 years, but towards the end, a few things started to happen. We started to get competition. Long story short, we made about, say, 25% off our profit from taking in clay, for example, stuff that couldn't be recycled, tipping it out in different tips, obviously landfill. Mm-hmm. They all started to dry out. So I found myself then looking at this business as a whole and thinking, is there a future in it? We've done well for a few years. Is it going to go up or is it going to go down? And it didn't really, obviously I can't predict the future. But I suppose I suppose if looking back at it now, I'm very glad I seen that it wasn't going up, because when I speak to people who were in that same industry in that area, they've suffered. So I made the right decision to, I wouldn't call it a move up or down, just a move to the side into property.
Yeah, and something different. And, you know, those people, again, it comes back to taking action, right? And understanding that pivot might be absolutely pivotal, you know, for the future. And as you said, there are some people who kind of get stuck in their businesses. Did you ever feel stuck at any point?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, that's something I didn't touch on, but the last year wasn't enjoying it. Didn't see as much growth as the year before. That might have been due to the competition. And it was huge competition. When you come in spending tens of millions, it's hard to keep up with it. But yeah, I did feel stuck. But like I said, Sean, I'm glad I felt like that, because looking back at it, it kind of led me into property that I have a big passion in.
So sometimes the hard things that happen to us actually turn out to be the things that we look back on and we realise they made it for us. Yeah, and if we hadn't had that experience, then we wouldn't be where we are now. Yeah,
it's always like that. You know, even when I'm speaking with friends, their stories are similar to mine, and it's the bad times that you need, really. They feel horrible when you're in them, but looking back, you need to make the mistakes, you need to go through the hard times, because it's not about having an easy life and not getting anywhere. You know, you want the hiccups, you want to take the L's, but just keep getting back up from them.
I love that. And, you know, if you're outside your comfort zone, I guess you're moving forward. If you feel comfortable, you're probably not moving forward. But if you're outside your comfort zone doing new stuff, then that's a good barometer of knowing that you're moving forward. Yeah. That's really cool. And so there's a lot of people going to be watching this who are still stuck in jobs that they don't like. And so if you have that fear, that worry or trepidation about making the change, take action to make the change. You can change your life. There are a lot of people watching who are building dreams for other people in other jobs. Start building your own dream. So Damien, how did property then happen? So
property happened because, I suppose, speaking about that situation I was in, I was thinking, you know, has this thing got legs anymore? I was always a saver growing up, saver of money. So I didn't have an investor mentality. I was like, borrow it away, keep it for myself, you know.
So just before you go on there, what's the difference between a saver mentality and an investor mentality?
So I'd say that a saver wants to put it in a bank account, that I don't think that they understand inflation. I don't think that they understand that their money is decreasing in valuation. However, an investor understands the economics of it, and they see that you shouldn't have money just sat around in a bank account on like 1-2%. Maximum, I think, is about 4.5% at the moment. Now that comes with its policies and this, that, and the other. An investor wants to put it to work. They want to put it in a place where it starts to work. While you're sleeping, that money's making money.
So that money's making money while you're asleep, because bank rates, the interest that you get on savings at the moment doesn't beat inflation.
No.
So as an investor, you want to be investing in products, you want to be investing in services, you want to be investing in investments that make a better percentage return than the rate of inflation. And then that way you're making money, as you say, while you sleep.
Well, exactly, yeah. And that's what it was. It's funny, actually, because it was coming up, I remember it was coming up to Christmas time when we were still in this whole business, and I was kind of thinking it all through, and someone bought me one of Warren Buffett's books. Now, I can't remember the title. I was trying to think of it on the way up here, and I can't think. But I was obsessed with it. Big, thick book it was, and I was reading every word. And when I got to the end of it, I thought, I need to look into, first of all, where can I go from here, but also what mistakes have I made. And I remember I sat down with pen and paper, just old school, and figuring out how much, as close as I could, I've lost through inflation. And when I looked at it, I think it was over about a 10-year period, it was the best part of a year's wages.
A year's wages? You must have fallen off your chair.
Honestly, I was heartbroken. And when I looked at it, and I remembered how hard those like cold mornings, those late finishes out in the rain, and I thought, all that, or the best part of a year, for nothing. And I thought, like, it has to stop now.
And that change has to happen.
Definitely. And that made me think, like, I mean, it wasn't even property I was looking at then, it was investing. But it made me obsessed with learning how investment worked. Every video, every YouTube video, all hours of the night up, just going through all this, going to as many events as I could, learning as much as possible. I looked into everything, looked into stocks as you do, looked into Bitcoin.
Of course.
Standard
stocks,
stuff, innit?
Bitcoin. Yeah, but you were networking, right?
A lot.
The fact is you were getting out there and you were networking and you were finding what worked. So why property in the end?
I liked the idea that you could see it. I liked the idea that it was there. When you look back, 50 years on property, you still see it going up. It has a steady cycle. So I like the security that came with it as well. It's not difficult property investing. It's just about keeping going. You just have to stay in it for long enough. It's the people that panic in the hard times that tend to lose out if you stick at it. So I found, to answer your question, I thought it was safer. I liked the idea that you could go to the property. And also I started learning about the BRRR. There's a lot of R's in there, isn't there?
The BRRR, for anybody who doesn't know, that's the buy, refurbish, rent, refinance strategy. Or there are lots of other R's that you can have now as well. It does seem to go BRRR these days. So you found the BRRR strategy.
Yeah.
And how did you start implementing that? How did you hear about that?
Yeah, so I probably would have heard about it on YouTube videos.
Yeah.
You type it in, don't you, and just stumble across these things. Like I said, I was obsessed with learning about it, because to think that you could start with a certain amount of money, which isn't really much, and you can invest in something and then potentially pull it all back out. Now, I know they're unicorn deals, but
they do exist, right?
Oh, yeah, I've done them.
You've done them, yes. So you've done deals where you have put your money all into the property, you've buying the property, refurbishing the property, then you put a tenant in, and then on the refinance, because you've added value with the refurbishment, when you refinance it, you're able to pull that money back out again, and then use that money to go again. Because I guess one of the big problems that traditional thinkers in property have is they put all their money into a property and then it gets stuck in the property. Whereas the BRRR model gives you a blueprint to be able to recycle. You used to recycle aggregates in your company, and now you recycle money out of your properties. And there are some deals, obviously, where you have to leave money in from time to time. But tell us about these deals where you've been able to take all your money back out.
Yeah, so I've done 2 deals. I pulled all the money out. So the best one to talk about probably be, it's a HMO. It's HMO. So it was my second HMO. It was up in the northeast, a place called Gateshead. I can tell you later on why I went up there, but just to stick on the deal, I find that the best deals, the ones that you pull all your money out on, usually have a story behind them. Now it was an auction property. It was already bought, and obviously I hadn't completed, but someone had already had an offer accepted on it. Now it turns out that these people are actually my mates. I didn't know this at the time. But
you didn't know they were your mates at the time?
No. I seen on the social media pages that they got this deal, and I thought nothing of it. But anyway, I was watching the auctions up in the northeast, and this deal popped up, and it was for like 100, and I think it was starting at 125,000. Didn't know what the reserve was. Usually 10% either way. And I went and viewed it, and I seen these cracks everywhere, and of course the fear kicked in, and I thought, I wonder what these cracks are, because not necessarily, it doesn't mean that there's subsidence.
And that's what often people think. People will see cracks and automatically put off it's subsidence, but it could just be cosmetic. It could be,
and again, risk and reward comes into it, because I had a short amount of time, and I thought, for security for myself, to put my mind at ease, should I get a structural engineer in? I don't even own the property. Structural engineer's like £800, but I took that risk, got him out he comes, and he comes back saying he's got all these reports from years ago he dug up as well. Anyway, long story short, it's settlement, so it's fine. So it's all good, it hasn't moved. Spoke to all the neighbours, looked at their properties. So the reason I'm saying all this is because we got it, I think the end value of a house done up on that street was 240,000.
240, and you got it for?
118,000.
Wow.
So it was a great buy, and I think that my friends who had the deal before were paying quite a bit more for it before they decided to pull out. So I knew it was a good buy. Then it's on about, I have to add the value. So we do that through change of use. So we go from C3 to C4, HMO.
So that's a residential use class, C3 to HMO, C4,
Yeah, and we up the value. Ripped it out, gutted it. It was a property of 160 square metres. I put in 6 rooms, 4 of these were studio rooms, which means that they have kitchenettes in them as well, so you get great rent for that.
Yeah, and was it enough to get a commercial valuation?
Yes,
It was enough to get a commercial valuation.
Yeah.
You see, if you know what you're doing, you can really add value to these properties. And a great way of doing that, turning a C3 property into a C4 property, a residential property into a HMO, adding value, but then putting kitchenettes and en-suites in the other rooms so it can't be used generally as a normal dwelling, can get you that commercial valuation. And tell us, what was the refurb cost? What was your profit in the end?
So the refurb cost was £105,000. The end valuation and the commercial end valuation was £365,000.
300. Okay, so let's go back a bit. So you bought the property for
118.
A house that was done up normally on that street would be worth,
I'd say up to 250.
250. You put 110 in the refurb.
105.
105 in the refurb. But you got a commercial valuation, which made it worth
365.
365.
Yeah.
And then you got a mortgage on that.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And that's how you pull all your money out.
And so how much money could you pull out of that? Was it a 75% loan to value mortgage?
It was 75%, yeah. I sometimes take out 75%, sometimes I go lower to keep the portfolio stable.
Yeah.
But on that one, I wanted all that money out to jump onto the next one that I already had planned. The HMO before that, I only took a 60% LTV out. Because again, like I said to you, Sean, fair enough for these people who want to go 75 all the way.
Sure.
But for me, I want to keep it more balanced, keep it safer.
Make money managing risk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Because people who take out 75% each time run the risk of there being interest rate increases, which a lot of people, in fairness, are seeing right now in 2024. Even though the Bank of England base rate has come down, interest rates for mortgages are still high, and people who had geared their portfolios at 75%, and maybe their properties have maybe gone down in value a little bit, are now struggling to refinance. So gearing your property at 60%. 65% instead of 75% is a really, really great way to reduce the risk that when you do a buy, refurbish, rent, refinance strategy. So it sounds really, really, it's a really, really great piece of advice, and it sounds like a fantastic deal. You took the money out of that deal, and then you could recycle it into another deal.
Straight in, and just on that point as well, Sean, before we move on, if you're leaving more money in the deal, if you've got a lower LTV, but you've got to remember you get better cash flow as well, because you got less borrowing, you got smaller mortgage repayments. So it's kind of, which one do you want? There's a balance in there somewhere. But yeah, we've got strong cash flow from that, so I'm happy.
Very cool. And was that your first property deal?
No, that was my second HMO.
That was your second HMO?
About my fourth or fifth property deal.
Oh, okay, wow. So that was an amazing deal. But let's rewind a little bit and talk about. Yeah. So talk about your first deals and how you got into that.
Yeah. So my first ever deal was a standard buy-to-let in Stockport, where I'm from. So a little bit of a story behind it again, but it comes back to most of my deals, or definitely the best of them, was a motivated seller. A motivated seller.
And it's a people business, right?
Of course it is.
It's a people business, and understanding people's problems and helping to solve their problems is what gets you the great deals.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. I remember you seeing a deal of mine on Progressive. That was a motivated seller. But just to stick to this buy-to-let, it was a couple that were living together. He was actually renovating the house, but they've had a falling out between the two of them. I don't think they could stand each other any longer. They wanted out. Saw I hear from the neighbours, and they came in. They put the price. It was 120,000, and I matched it because it was definitely worth it.
So they got what they wanted, you got what you wanted.
Exactly, yeah. And the thing with that is, I was gonna start negotiating, but I just seen what it was worth at the end, which was about 180,000 at the time, and I thought it's not worth that risk. It's not worth the risk of losing over £1,000 or £2,000. I think that they put it up for a fair price, and they did, definitely. It was a good buy. Instead of annoying someone, because people could be emotional, especially when they're selling the house.
Absolutely.
I thought, this isn't the time to negotiate. And I love negotiating, me. I do it quite often. It's pretty hard. But with this one, I just thought, meet them at the price. They accepted it straight away. And yeah, sailed through legals.
So you've touched on something really important there, and that's the difference between what true market value is. There's a lot of property communities that talk about BMV, below market value. Yeah. And what does below market value actually mean?
Exactly.
And a lot of people out there think below market value means this is the asking price, we're going to put an offer in that's 25% below that price. But actually that's just 25% below the asking price. Yeah. it's not 25% below the market value. There are properties out there that are priced perfectly, that are already priced at a below market value offer. If you can find those properties, it's about understanding, keep the end in mind, understanding what it's worth, what can you do with that property. It's understanding that aspect and working backwards that tells you whether or not the asking price is a good price. And if you discover a property at its asking price that you can add value to and still be able to pull most of your money, if not all of your money back out of, then give the asking price. What benefits have you found as being part of the progressive property community?
Yeah, it's a good network, a solid network around you is invaluable in property. I mean, if someone was just starting out, the main thing I'd say to them is get connected, because you won't know everything at the beginning, you won't know everything 10 years later. But if you could find someone that knows the answer, then it's just as good as.
Could people learn from other people's mistakes? Taking action is important, but people learn through making mistakes. But if lots of other people have made these mistakes already and they're sharing it on communities like this and they're networking with people who have done it before, do you think those people could accelerate their journey by learning from what other people have done?
Yeah, of course they could. They could accelerate the journey. They could save themselves a lot of money as well. Save thousands lost, to be honest, because I know
you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, I've you got to stay connected. You got to stay around the right people, be in the rooms with people more experienced than yourselves, and add value to them as well. And
add value to them, and there's so much you're saying here that really resonates with me. Add value to other people, but if you were the most experienced person in a room, are you going to be able to learn?
No, you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
If you're the most experienced person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And the progressive property community provides an environment of like-minded individuals where you can go and you can sense test deals. There are people who go into the progressive property community and they sense test their deals in there and ask for advice and say, these are my numbers. Does anybody have any advice? And people like you who have clearly got a lot of experience now in property. How many properties, do you mind me asking how many properties you've done? How many properties do you own? How many do you have?
No, don't mind you asking at all. So I'm on 9, but I've recently entered into a joint venture, a business partnership. A friend of mine, Tim Plou's, started up a company called True Estates. So we have 2 going into refurbishment now, so that's adding to the pot as well.
Fantastic.
And hopefully we'll have, we've got a goal of having 10 HMOs next year, which is a big one.
10 big HMOs goal. Next year. Yeah, no, but you got to strive for these big goals, right?
Of course you do, especially because we joined up together. So, yeah, I still see myself very much at the beginning. To be honest, I'm going to be in this for life. So, the numbers will hopefully grow throughout the years.
So Damien's got 9. He's got a goal of having 10 HMOs next year, but he still sees himself being at the beginning. And people who are part of our progressive community can learn from people like Damien, who are posting regularly in the progressive community and are networking with people in the progressive community. Now, you feel like you're at the start of your journey. What's the end? What's the end goal? What's the dream?
So, the dream is the dream is to. I want to go into commercials, or we want to go into commercials next. Do you know what? I know all my financial goals. I've got all my cash flow goals. I've got it set out. But I suppose there is a bit of emotion in there. They say not to be emotional about it, but we're human.
We're human, exactly.
Exactly. I just want to own some big, beautiful buildings in Manchester city centre, in Stockport centre, and just be proud. Be proud of the quality, because the figures will come. I'm confident. I'm not cocky, but I'm confident that the figures will grow and it'll all work out. But I want to be proud of what I've done. And that's the big, beautiful buildings.
That's the big, beautiful buildings. I love it. Be unashamedly you, right? Be unashamedly you. Course, what do you want? You go out and get it. What would you say to anybody? There are going to be a lot of people watching this who are on the cusp about whether or not property is for them and whether they should get into it. What would you say to those people?
I tell them to get out and start meeting people. I tell them to get to events, get surrounded by the right people. I tell them to go for it. I say that sometimes it's not as easy as people make out. There's so many different opinions online. You've got to put the hard work in, but you can. It's a career where you can really enjoy it, because there's so many different hats to wear, so many different things to do. But the first step, I say, definitely go for it, but educate yourself first. Go in with some bullets in your gun, as they say. Don't go in blind and start spending money if you don't know what you're doing. Education, connection, and find the right people to help you out and provide value to them as well.
I love that. And as we know, Progressive is the biggest property training company in the UK, and we have multiple events. We have our multiple streams of property income event where people can come and be educated on the best property strategies that exist in the UK right now, and then implement what they learn at that event and go and make it in property, just like Damien here has. Well, Damien, it has been absolutely fantastic to have you here in the studio with us today. Your story is really inspiring. I'm sure lots of listeners and watchers will hear what you have to say and feel enthused and inspired to start their own property journey. So thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.